More progress on land, air and sea in recent days. We'll cross live to Kiev to speak to Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk as she helps lead her country's brave resistance against Putin's army. As Russian forces continue to callously target civilians, with 21 innocent Ukrainians losing their lives in a Kharkiv school bombing today, is a leaked 15-point plan exploring possibilities of Ukrainian neutrality the best path to ending this bloody war? Well, I'm going to analyse that in my digest before my superstar panel give their view. Tonight, I'm joined by top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, political commentator Dominique Samuels and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. As Macron leads election polls and Partygate is forgotten in the face of a real crisis, has the Ukraine war secretly been good for Western politicians? We'll debate that at 10 p.m. Tory MP Andrew Bridgen sent shockwaves through Downing Street after turning against Boris over Partygate. But he's now torn up his letter of no confidence in the PM, and he's here to explain how Boris won him back at 9:30. Is Prince Harry's refusal to attend Prince Philip's memorial and visit the 95-year-old Queen following her health issues unforgivable? Well, Meghan's estranged father Thomas Markle weighs in as he sits down for his first interview since launching his headline-making YouTube channel. That's at 10:20. Why are the left now calling Russell Brand a conspiracy theorist for questioning the mainstream media narrative? Social media sensation and free speech champion Zubi tackles that in Uncancelled at 10:40. As Conservative councillors claim Anglophobia in Scotland is worse than Islamophobia, why is Nicola Sturgeon spreading hate against her neighbours? Well, Mark Dolan analyses the effect of scheming Sturgeon's politics of division in The Outsider at 9:45. As Health Secretary Sajid Javid suggests some people will need a booster this autumn, potentially all of us, should Brits be offered a fourth jab? Well, NHS doctor Steve James, who made headlines for heroically standing up to Javid on vaccine mandates, he says there's no scientific basis for yet another jab, but journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov thinks jabbing everyone is critical for our nation's safety. They'll do battle in the clash at 9:20. Have Matt Lucas and David Walliams capitulated to the woke mob by editing Little Britain? We'll debate that in the Media Buzz at 10:30, plus a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass revealed before the end of the show too. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. Breaking tonight, security around access to our cabinet ministers is in the spotlight after an imposter potentially working for Russia, posing as the Ukrainian Prime Minister, managed to get on a video call with the Defence Secretary. This afternoon, Ben Wallace admitted today an attempt was made by an imposter claiming to be the Ukrainian PM to speak with me. He posed several misleading questions, and after becoming suspicious, I terminated the call. No amount of Russian disinformation, distortion and dirty tricks can distract from Russia's humanitarian abuses and illegal invasion of Ukraine, a desperate attempt. Within hours, the Home Secretary tweeted that she had received a similar call earlier in the week. Priti Patel tweeted, "This also happened to me. Pathetic attempt. At such difficult times to divide us, we stand with Ukraine." Now, the Ministry of Defence has tonight launched an investigation, but it's clear Putin's information war is continuing at pace. But is Ukraine any closer to securing a ceasefire deal with Russia? The country's Deputy Prime Minister joins me very shortly. Then my superstar panel react. Let's take a first look at them tonight. It is the top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. It's a very busy show ahead, and keeping us updated with the news headlines is Miranda Shunka.
Thank you. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. Well, as you've just been hearing, an inquiry is underway after two cabinet ministers admitted they've been targeted by hoax phone calls. Ben Wallace says an imposter posing as the Ukrainian Prime Minister was able to reach him on the telephone, a move he described as Russian dirty tricks. Meanwhile, Home Secretary Priti Patel has revealed that she was also targeted last week. She described the incident as a pathetic attempt to divide us. P&O ferries have made hundreds of staff redundant in what officials say is a bid to save the company. 800 staff were fired with immediate effect via video message after the company made losses of £100 million. The announcement led to protests in Dover and staff refused to leave a P&O ferry in Hull. Transport Minister Robert Courts told the Commons the way workers were informed of job losses was completely unacceptable.
These are hard-working, dedicated staff who have given years in service to P&O. The way they have been treated today is wholly unacceptable. Reports of workers being given zero notice and escorted off their ships with immediate effect, while being told cheaper alternatives would take up their roles, shows the insensitive way in which P&O have approached this issue.
Rescue workers are continuing to search for survivors after a theatre in Ukrainian capital of city of Mariupol was hit by an airstrike. The number of casualties is still unknown, but it's thought hundreds of people were sheltering inside at the time. A satellite image before the strike appeared to show the word children written in Russian on the pavement. Moscow has denied its involvement in the shelling. Meanwhile, Mariupol's city council says around 30,000 people have now managed to leave the besieged city. It comes as the Red Cross called on Russia to allow civilians a safe passage out and for aid to be brought in. Ukrainian officials say over 350,000 people, though, are still sheltering there. And the first family selfie has been released showing Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, her husband Richard and 7-year-old daughter Gabriella. The image was posted by the family's MP, Tulip Siddiq. She described the couple as relentless in their pursuit of justice, revealing they'd already raised the plight of another detainee in Iran, Morad Tabaz. Nazanin returned to the UK in the early hours of this morning after being detained for 6 years in Iran. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Ukraine has won. Look, I know the losses, both in terms of lives and property, are enormous. The images of willful destruction and human tragedy we are seeing on a daily basis are beyond comprehension in 2022. I don't know about you, I'm not even close to feeling desensitized. Every image and dispatch from Mariupol fills me with a mix of deep sadness, intense anger and immense frustration. But I repeat, Ukraine has won. The country's wonderful and steadfast citizens who have fought the might of Russia and kept Putin's incompetent and stuttering military machine at bay have become international heroes. Their patriotism and bravery blows me away day after day. The future of Ukraine is perilous politically, but as secure as it's ever been emotionally and in the eyes of the world. That's why I believe negotiating a ceasefire with an increasingly weak Putin is now essential. Let Putin declare victory all he wants. We know he has lost. But stop the shelling of Ukrainian civilians as soon as humanly possible. Now, overnight, the Financial Times revealed the demands made by Russia in peace talks, which again illustrates just what an isolated and economically strangled position Putin finds himself. The reported demands from Russia are Kiev renouncing its ambitions to join NATO or any other military alliances with its neutrality based on the status of Austria or Sweden, promising not to host foreign military bases or weaponry in exchange for protection from allies such as the US, UK and Turkey. A reduction in the size of the Ukrainian armed forces. Some of the reported demands from Ukraine are immediate ceasefire and a full Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. Now, of course, I understand the fury of folk who feel giving in to Putin on anything is wrong. But the immediate imperative is stopping the slaughter of Ukrainian citizens and the destruction of entire cities. Sources say a deal could result in helping both sides find a credible way to declare victory in the war. Although predictably the status of Ukrainian territories taken by Russian forces in 2014 likely to be a major stumbling block to an agreement. I repeat, we know Ukraine has won. Get this ceasefire signed, and then we'll deal with Putin's illegal invasion. But to respond now, I'm joined by Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Irina Vereshchuk. Irina is a former Ukrainian army officer and she became an MP for President Zelensky's Servant of the People Party in 2019. In recent weeks, she's presented daily video briefings to the nation aimed at coordinating the safe evacuation of Ukrainians through humanitarian corridors. The Deputy Prime Minister joins me now, and we have a translator with us too. Deputy Prime Minister, can you give us an update on the status of the peace talks between your country and Russia today?
Пані віце-прем'єр, чи можете нас проінформувати про стан мирних переговорів між вашою країною і Росією на сьогоднішній день?
Я не є членом перемовної групи, однак точно знаю, що основними питаннями, які зараз обговорюються, припинення вогню і повне виведення збройних формувань з території України.
I'm not a member of a negotiation team, but I'm confident, I know for sure that the main items which are being discussed now is the ceasefire and withdrawal of our Russian military units from the territory of Ukraine.
Okay, so is neutral status something you would consider as a sacrifice to secure a ceasefire?
А чи є нейтральний статус України можливою жертвою, яку ви готові принести для забезпечення припинення вогню?
Ми мали нейтральний статус усі роки, і це не допомогло нам, як бачите, і не позбавило нас від агресії Путіна сьогодні на території України. Тому ми вимагаємо нової безпекової угоди, яка б забезпечила нашу безпеку в майбутньому. Якщо це буде називатись нейтральним статусом, окей, але угода має бути такою, щоб давала гарантії безпеки Україні.
Well, we've had neutral status all these years, and actually it hasn't protected us from Putin's aggression. So we need some new guarantees of security. Okay, if it is called neutral status, let it be. But this new agreement, this security agreement, should prevent any further aggression against our territory.
Okay, well, that seems significant. Of course, as well as being Deputy Prime Minister, you are the minister responsible for reintegration of temporary occupied territories. So is there also any room for any negotiation over Putin's demand for recognition of Russian rule in Crimea?
Крім того, що ви є віце-прем'єром, ви також є міністром, який відповідальний за реінтеграцію тимчасово окупованих територій. Чи є якась можливість для того, щоб предметом переговорів була б вимога Путіна про визнання влади Росії в Криму?
Цього ніколи не станеться. Ми не зможемо визнати владу Росії в Криму, як не визнали в 2014 році. Український народ цього не допустить. Занадто велика жертва і занадто багато крові пролито за те, щоб українська територія залишалась цілісною і неподільною.
It will never happen. The Ukrainian people will never allow it. Too many sacrifices, too much blood was spilled, and the Ukrainian people will never tolerate Crimea to be under the Russian rule.
Okay, what about the separatist southeastern republics of Donetsk and Luhansk? I mean, could they be recognized as independent states? Would you open the door, for example, to the possibility of a referendum?
Гаразд. А що стосується так званих Донецької та Луганської народних республік, чи ви готові були б відкрити двері, наприклад, щодо визнання їх як незалежних держав, або відкрити двері для референдуму?
У нас немає Донецької та Луганської народних республік, у нас є окремі райони Донецької та Луганської області. І коли ми говоримо про референдум, він можливий лише як всеукраїнський. У нас Конституція забороняє місцеві референдуми, навіть немає такого закону. А отже, якщо це питання буде винесено на референдум, ви розумієте, відповідь буде очевидною.
Well, we don't have any separate republics as Luhansk or Donetsk People's Republic. They are considered special regions of the special regions of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, special parts of that, and our constitution does not provide for local referendums. And if there is a referendum, the result is obvious; it will be known.
Okay, I want to talk about the situation in Kiev. I know you're there at the moment. Are you now confident that Kiev will not fall to the Russian army?
Я хотів би зараз поговорити про ситуацію в Києві, де ви зараз знаходитеся. Ви впевнені, що Київ не впаде перед навалою російською?
Нам потрібна ваша допомога. Щоб бути впевненою, я дуже розраховую, що саме Британія і британський народ, які так багато уже зробили для нас, за що ми вам дуже дякуємо. Ми дякуємо за кожний фунт, який витратили платники податків, а саме громадяни Великобританії, щоб допомогти Україні. Але нам треба протиповітряна оборона. Путін бомбардує нас з неба. Ми втрачаємо життя цивільних, жінок та дітей, не маючи можливості себе захистити. На землі наша армія робить неможливе, але в небі нам потрібен захист. І тоді я скажу на вашій передачі, так, я переконана, що Путін ніколи не візьме Київ.
Well, we need your assistance for that. We need to be confident, and we're already grateful to the United Kingdom and British people for every pound your taxpayers paid assisting us. But what we need is anti-aircraft defense. Putin is bombarding us from the skies. Our military are doing great things on soil, on the surface, but our children and kids are being bombed and they're killed from the skies. So we need your assistance, and then with that, I will be able to say in the future at your program, yes, we're confident that Kiev will not fall to the Russians.
Do you have any more information about the potential use of chemical weapons by Russia?
А чи у вас є інформація щодо потенційного використання хімічної зброї Росією?
Так, нас про це попереджає наша розвідка. Росія хоче вдатись до жахливої провокації, звинуватити в цьому Захід, як ви знаєте, біомедичні лабораторії, яких не було і немає. Всі речі, які ми робимо разом з американцями чи великобританцями, є завжди офіційні, публічні, на сайтах і у формах договорів. Але Росія хоче застосувати хімічну зброю, і зараз у нас все цивільне населення вивчає, чим хлор чи інші хімічні сполуки відрізняються і що треба робити, коли така атака буде зроблена.
Well, we are receiving, we're receiving warnings from our intelligence that Russia wants to go for awful provocation and to blame West for using chemical or biological weapons. Any activities of this kind, we are with Americans or the British, they are open and they are all reflected and provided by the agreements. But Russia wants to use this and to use this as a pretext. And now all our civilians actually studying learning how to defend themselves, against chlorine, all other substances.
Yeah, very shocking. And look, finally, I want to ask you about the breaking news today, which is that an imposter posing as your Prime Minister has got through on a phone call to our Defence Secretary. Do you think this is Russian dirty tricks?
І нарешті я хотів би, щоб ви трохи прокоментували сьогоднішню гарячу новину. Найостаннішу була спроба додзвонитися до нашого міністра оборони під виглядом особи, яка удавала себе вашим прем'єр-міністром. Чи ви вважаєте, що це ще одна брудний трюк Росії?
Якщо Росія дозволила собі на території Великобританії отруїти людей, які померли, які постраждали від так званого новічка, То як ви думаєте, чи може Росія вдатись до таких брудних кампаній? Звичайно, так. Навіть не сумніваюсь, що це робить саме Росія.
Well, if Russia managed to poison to death people on the territory of the United Kingdom with Novichok, it's obvious. Have no doubt that this is another dirty trick of Russia.
OK, thank you so much. That is Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Irina Vereshchuk, and do keep safe in Kiev. I'll bring in my superstar panel now. Top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. The first thing to say to our viewers, of course, is thank you for sticking with us during that. It's obviously incredibly important to hear from the Deputy Prime Minister, but I do understand it's difficult when we're having to do it through a translator. But quite a lot of news out of that discussion, Sarah Vine, because she seems very very happy to concede neutrality, but not to concede anything on Crimea.
No, I mean, I think that the Ukrainians are playing quite a dangerous game here, because actually, I mean, if it was me, I'd just want to do anything to stop the attacks. You know, just literally anything. Have as many sweeties as you want, and then we'll work it out later.
That's how I feel.
I mean, but they're obviously very, very determined to try and get this no-fly zone, which they're not going to get. And they can't have it, unfortunately, because then that really is everyone that is Russia against the rest of the world, and we can't trigger that. But they're still pushing for that. I think in their minds they think that they can perhaps get that. So I think that they need to think very carefully about what about their approach now, because I think Putin is on the back foot, and I think he probably would welcome some sort of cessation. Obviously, he has to be seen not to be humiliated. I mean, you know, it's like we were saying last week, it's history all over again, isn't it? You know, we've got to make sure that he feels he can leave with his honour. Well, no, not with his honour. He doesn't have any honour, but you know what I mean.
And the argument I made at the top of the show, though, is essentially this list of demands from Putin, it is a humiliation. I mean, this is nothing close to what he thought he was going to get at the start of this invasion.
I mean, I completely agree with Sarah. This is sort of what I've been saying, and people have been calling me an appeaser, but what's happening right now is what I knew was going to happen, because at the end of the day, Ukrainians are suffering and dying. It's irresponsible to still be demanding the no-fly zone when you know it's not going to happen. We're not going to go to World War III for Ukraine. At the end of the day, Putin, the invasion hasn't been as successful as he proclaimed.
Not even close.
They're on the back foot. The Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people have done themselves justice, and they've shown that Ukrainian people will not be bullied. But now it's time to actually get to the table, and I think they probably should make some concessions now. Say they're going to be neutral, say they're not going to join NATO. I think with regards to Crimea, whether or not they recognise it, it's not going to be taken back from Putin. I think we've accepted that as well. With regards to the independent regions, Donetsk and Luhansk, I think that there is a very different culture within those regions, especially politically. They're more sceptical of NATO, and that illegal referendum that was held, they did vote to want to be more closer with Moscow. So I don't think it would necessarily be such a big problem if that was made sort of a concession as well.
Yes,
but
Amy Nicol, I guess the point is that Ukrainian people, yes, they're dealing with this death and destruction, but they're also feeling increasingly confident, because Putin is not even close to taking Kiev. There's real confidence now. We saw it from the Deputy PM in Kiev. They know he's not taking the city. He can send all the missiles he wants, but his army ain't taking that city.
And that has taken absolutely everyone by surprise, namely Putin, which is, I think, why, if you look at the plan set out today, it makes me think that he's buying time. So he's buying time so that he can regroup his troops and come back with a stronger attack. And I think that's my concern, because he's established himself as quite the liar. He lied about the troops on the border. He's lied about everything, hasn't he? The corridor, the fact he's bombed civilians.
Well, this is the problem,
so
though,
can we trust the plan put forward by someone like that?
At the moment, the only success that he can have, quote-unquote success, is with revolting Syria-style airstrikes, and he's turning Mariupol into the new Aleppo.
Yeah, I mean, he's becoming such a pariah. You know, and the only way forward he has is to carry on with the bombardment. Exactly. That's all he has. That's the only, because on the ground he obviously is no match.
Yeah,
I think
he doesn't care anymore.
That's why
either.
a lot of people would think it was irresponsible to rule out a no-fly zone and make that very clear that we're going to rule it out. We're not saying we're going to do it, but I think to say we're definitely not also sends a really bad
Well, that's obviously the Tony Blair argument, isn't it? That
the warmonger himself.
Well, of course, but that Biden shouldn't have ruled out.
I don't think anyone should listen to anything that Mr. Iraq says, because he's the prime example of what not to do.
But ultimately, you know, at this point, this is an attack on a democracy. To concede with a war criminal like Putin is surely like appeasing Hitler at this stage.
Ukraine is the most, the second most corrupt country in Europe. So I wouldn't say it's a big...
But you still crossed a border and invaded a sovereign nation.
That's obviously wrong. That's obviously wrong, but I think we can't be unrealistic about the kind of country Ukraine is. It's not perfect.
No, and look, the fact is, we have all slammed Russia for this attack.
Yeah,
the one good thing that Russia has done over the past couple of days is actually start demanding less and less from Ukraine, because they know
they're coming to the table. They're coming to the table, and I think if we start making noises about a no-fly zone, he's going to think, oh, this is great. We can really go big with this war. Exactly. And he will, because he's.
Well, we can't trust him.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? That's
Dominique Sandals, Amy Nicole. Thank you so much, my superstar panel. They are here all night, but also still to come. Tory MP Andrew Bridgen sent shockwaves through Downing Street after turning against Boris over Partygate. But he's now torn up his letter of no confidence in the PM, and he's here to explain how Boris won him back very soon. But up next is Health Secretary Sajid Javid suggests some people will need another booster this autumn. Should all Brits be offered a fourth jab? Well, NHS Dr. Steve James went viral for standing up to Javid on vaccine mandates, and he says there's no scientific basis for another jab. But journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, well, she can't see why people wouldn't protect themselves by rolling up their sleeves yet again. They're going to go head-to-head in the clash straight after 8. But of course, your view, most important to me, Dan at gbnews.uk on email. Tweet me at gbnews. We've got a poll running there as well. The results coming up after the break.
Good evening. If you like blue skies, well, you're in for a treat. For the next couple of days, most of us will see plenty of sunshine. But early on tomorrow, could be quite foggy, and certainly it will be a chilly old start. This weakening weather front has brought a few showers through the day, and still a few around this evening across parts of Scotland, but high pressure is moving in, and this will dominate our weather through Friday and Saturday. As I said, still 1 or 2 showers over the Highlands, the Northern Isles, the Western Isles, steadily fading overnight. For most, it's a dry evening, a dry and clear night. Fog is likely to form over parts of the Midlands, Wales and southern England. Could be quite dense in places as well. Further north, staying largely clear. It's here where we will get fairly extensive frost, but even further south, it's a cold start to Friday, especially if you've got the fog, quite a grey start for some, and it may take a while for that fog to clear, certainly likely to linger through the morning rush hour. But once it's gone from late morning, it's generally a fine and sunny day up and down the land. Plenty of blue sky, a bit of a breeze picking up once more in the northwest. Temperatures here 8 to 10, but elsewhere, look at that, widely into the teens. 16, 17 and 18 is just about possible. The sun is getting stronger and stronger at the moment. It will turn quite cold quite quickly during tomorrow evening under those clear skies. We're not going to have as much fog around, and it won't be quite as frosty because there'll be more of a breeze blowing, and that breeze will be a feature of the weather through the weekend. Yes, lots of sunshine on Saturday, almost wall-to-wall sunshine, in fact, but there will be a stronger wind picking up across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western Scotland in particular. So that will make it feel a little cooler on Saturday, but temperatures still widely in that sunshine into the mid-teens, well above average for the time of year. Probably a warmer day across the northwest of Scotland. Sunday, still dry and bright for the vast majority, but cloudier, a little colder, and some showers are possible across East Anglia and the southeast.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Mark Dolan and Zuby on the way, but first, it's time for The Clash. Now, there's been a frenzied reaction to the news we brought you on the show last night that the Health Secretary has hinted that a fourth COVID jab will be offered to the entire population.
Is it possible they'll come forward, therefore, and say we need more people jabbed?
I think at some point they will, and they've actually been clear in their most recent advices that they think that towards the end of this year, maybe in the autumn, there will be a need to give a lot more people a boost, an offer of a boost, but I'll wait for that.
Probably not to the autumn, okay.
His comments came after the Pfizer chief executive on Sunday said that a fourth jab is going to be necessary along with yearly boosters. Well, of course he did.
You've seen some of that data on a fourth dose, a second booster shot. You think it will be necessary?
It is necessary, a fourth boost right now. The protection that you're getting from the third, it is good enough, actually quite good for hospitalizations and deaths. It's not that good against infections, but doesn't last very long.
This new strategy appears to go against the plan proposed by the JCVO's own chairman and one of the driving forces behind the Oxford AstraZeneca jab, Professor Sir Andrew Pollard, who I respected a lot for saying in January, we can't vaccinate the planet every 4 to 6 months. It's not sustainable or affordable. In the future, we need to target the vulnerable. Emphasis on vulnerable, which the JCVI has been recommending anyway. And despite COVID cases being on the rise in the last week, deaths have actually been falling consistently since January's peak, while only half of the hospitalisations for COVID being incidental, meaning they tested positive after they were admitted. So, with all of that in mind, in all honesty, do all Brits really need to have a fourth jab? I want to hear from you on this. I know it's a very controversial issue. Dan at gbnews.uk, at gbnews on social media. Go and vote in our poll there too. But to help you make up your mind, I'm joined by the broadcaster and author, Nina Mishkov, and the critical care consultant at King's College Hospital, Dr. Steve James. So, Steve, let me start with you. I don't understand this. I don't understand why we're ignoring Sir Andrew Pollard, the chairman of the JCVI, someone who's very pro-vaccination. I mean, he was completely involved in the development of the AstraZeneca jab, who said we need to just focus on the vulnerable. Now, why are we talking about another population-wide rollout?
I don't get the reasoning why we would want to move to a population-wide rollout. I never really saw the argument for that in the first place. I think population-wide we need to reduce risk factors for why people get sick with COVID rather than vaccinate more and more people.
Nina Mishkov, I presume you disagree.
I absolutely disagree. And in fact, I'm part of research that's going on into antibodies, and I've been part of this research for the last year for Public Health England. And so I give a blood sample every 3 to 6 months. And so I have my results for the first booster jab. And it shows you actually my levels of antibodies here and how I start with nothing. It goes up to nearly 1,000, starting from 0 after about 6 weeks. And then when I get the second vaccination, it goes to 17,000. And then it starts to drop. So it does have efficacy, and these are scientific facts. If we look at what's happening in this country, and we look at what's happening in China and Hong Kong at the moment, in this country, 77% was what happened last week, a rise of 77% in cases. And although deaths, thank goodness, are not as they were, there are still hospitalisations. And the hospitalisations mean that people who have not had their treatment they should normally have and have lagged behind, and this huge backlog of cases is not being attended to. In China, what's happened is that Hong Kong is at an absolutely critical condition. They're running out of coffins. Pictures showed last Friday night that they were storing...
Yeah, because a zero COVID strategy, which is what they have been pursuing, is completely bonkers and completely mad, as I have been saying for the past 2 years, because it means you have no natural immunity across the population, which means that when Omicron came along, and this has happened in Australia and New Zealand too, it rips through the population.
But the point being that the people who are dying, 90% of them are unvaccinated. And you say that, this is obviously a disaster, but it's also feeding into the economic side of things.
Oh, it is.
It is because.
But Nina, I would say that is lockdowns that are doing that,
no,
not
it's not
COVID. It is the ridiculous, draconian, authoritarian, totalitarian response to COVID.
It's lack of vaccination. And what's happened is that the Hong Kong cases have filtered into China. In Shenzhen, which is the industrial hub, they've had to shut down factories, Apple factories, Toyota. So iPhones are kind of
because they are pursuing a zero COVID strategy, and they are a crazed government that actually put the world in this place in the first place.
You cannot argue against the fact that 90% of the people that are dying in Hong Kong are unvaccinated.
OK, but Steve James, what's your response to that statistic?
So you've got to look at what's going on within the whole population. It's very rare that you need to go out and give a medical intervention to absolutely everybody. If you look in Hong Kong, if you look in each part of the world, you look at who was getting the serious disease. To ignore that fact again and again is ridiculous. Nina, it's great that your antibody levels go up, but does that mean, were you at risk in the first place?
I'm 108 years old, so of course I'm at risk. I'm in the top level, so I'm going to get my 4th injection.
Yes, but maybe that makes sense for you, Nina. And by the way, I would absolutely agree with everyone's freedom of choice to do that. If you want to get the jab because you feel vulnerable, completely, that's fine. Speaking personally, and I'll put this to you, Dr. Steve James, as the medical professional, speaking personally, I see absolutely no need for me to be ever jabbed against COVID again. I've had COVID. I had the Wuhan strain initially. I was vaxxed because I felt pressured into it in order to travel and to be part of this great national effort. I've now had Omicron. Surely there's actually more risk to me, Steve, now from vaccine damage than there is from COVID, given the level of immunity that I have.
It's a very difficult situation to pull apart. We've got increased mortality currently in this country, and we don't know why it is. Is it because COVID has caused more widespread damage? Is it because vaccines have caused damage? Is it because lockdowns caused damage?
Or maybe a bit of both.
Are you saying, Steve, lockdowns have caused damage and it's a death by lockdown? Because you're saying... You're questioning why has the death rate gone up? Are you seriously saying lockdowns? You don't
think lockdowns have caused death, Nina? What planet are you on?
I definitely see that lockdowns have caused death because they drive all the factors that would cause death. So isolation, lack of contact to medical support, low activity, ordering takeaway. I mean, the list would just be endless of things.
When did we last have a lockdown?
People who are having heart attacks at home, missing cancer treatments, suicide.
When did we last?
OK, so let's say lockdown culture, Nina. It's not just the periods of time. It's the fact that people don't go out. It's
well, no, but Nina, do you not understand? There's a real difference. COVID deaths happen immediately. Lockdown deaths might take years and years and years to work out, and we probably never will know the full death toll from lockdown.
We're talking about the sharp end of things. At the moment, we're very lucky. We've got Omicron. We've now got the next, mini variant on it. There could be another variant. We could have another Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been completely complacent, and the more complacent we are, the more vulnerable we become.
So, Nina, let me ask you, I understand your decision for yourself, but we're talking, because you say you're in a vulnerable group, so that is fine, and I understand that. But we're talking about all Brits here. So, for example, I want to give you the example of a 15-year-old boy. Now, I have looked into this closely. I know Steve has too. If you're a 15-year-old boy, there is far more chance of you being damaged by the vaccine than there is of you being damaged by COVID. When you look at side effects like myocarditis, would you want that 15-year-old boy to get a fourth jab?
Would you want him to have it offered to him? We wouldn't offer everybody a medical intervention just because they want to have it.
No, but I would want to see the facts, and I would want somebody that I trust to give me the scientific facts to show what percentage of people.
But we're talking about offering it to the whole population, and that's what I'm asking you. That's what you want.
The thing is, Dan, you're talking about offering it to the whole population. You're not pinning people down and vaccinating them. You're offering it to them. And
well, I think it feels a bit different over the past couple of years, given that Steve was about to lose his job because he chose not to be jabbed.
Well, I understand that completely, but and that's absolutely his choice. But surely the whole point of being in the medical profession, you have an altruistic attitude, and the first Hippocratic oath is first do no harm.
So don't inject vaccines if you're not sure they're going to benefit people.
And are you vaccinated in any way at all?
Yes, I had vaccines as a child.
Well, yes, and did you have to have any vaccines or any kind of medical intervention before you were allowed to become a doctor or before you were allowed to treat patients?
Nina, if we want to say that all vaccines are the same as each other, that's like saying all dresses are the same as each other, all pharmaceutical drugs are the same as each other, and all restaurants are the same as each other. They're not.
I'm not.
So
I'm
you can't compare one vaccine with another.
No,
just because I had hepatitis B, a serious disease that would have affected me, a vaccine that was 20, 30 years of side effect profiling completed, that's totally different from a vaccine.
Because, Nina, you must understand there's a real difference between you in a vulnerable category to COVID having a jab and a 15-year-old boy having a jab, when he's at more risk of dying by being struck by lightning.
How many 15-year-olds or how many 15-year-olds have died from the side effects? I want to know numbers.
Oh, well, there is evidence.
177,000, as far as I know, was the last from the Office of National Statistics.
How many 15-year-olds without any risk factors have died from COVID in this country?
But how many?
We're talking about single figures.
And also, are we talking about single figures when it comes to young people dying of the vaccine? How many people have died from effects of the vaccine?
It'd be nice if these numbers were made clear to us.
Oh, if they were made clear to us. So you don't have the numbers, but you...
No, but there is research being done on this. There is research being done on this. And the one thing that we do know from the latest analysis that I looked at, which was actually done out of Los Angeles, but using British numbers, is that in that high-risk group of young males, there is more chance of dying from the vaccine as a result of myocarditis than there is of dying from COVID. Now, that is an age group. That is a young male age group.
I would like to see the statistics, and I would like to see the institute that
I'll bring them to you, and I've spoken about them on the show before, and I've named the people who are behind that research, and I'll provide them to you,
I've shown scientific data.
Thank you so much.
I don't just want supposition and preposition,
No, but that data exists. That was the broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov and the critical care consultant at King's College Hospital, Dr. Steve James. Thank you so much. So who do you agree with? Well, Louise on Twitter Says definitely not. Target the elderly and the most vulnerable and leave the rest of us alone. I'm in my 40s. I've had 3 vaccines and COVID twice, and under no circumstances will I agree to a 4th vaccine. I'm pretty much where you are, Louise, to be honest. Ross on Twitter says they can offer all they like. As long as it's just offer and not force, fine. Your choice to take it. I've had 0, my choice. You want to queue up for your 4th? Fine, your choice. And Patricia on email says no, definitely not. We don't keep needing booster jabs for COVID, and I won't have one. And your verdict is now in. Interesting this, 27% of you agree that all Brits should get a 4th jab, while 73% of you say we shouldn't. Now, coming up, has Anglophobia become a bigger issue in Scotland than Islamophobia, as a Conservative councillor claims? Well, GB News star, and it's his birthday today. So I'm honoured that Mark Dolan will be in the house to tackle the effect of Nicola Sturgeon's politics of division. That's in The Outsider soon. But next, Tory MP Andrew Bridgen has been impressed by Boris Johnson's steadfast response to the war in Ukraine, so much so he's withdrawn his letter of no confidence in the PM. He explains why Partygate has now been forgotten. That's straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Mark Dolan and Zuby on the way, but first, Conservative MP and prominent Brexiteer Andrew Bridgen hit the headlines back in January when he submitted a bombshell letter of no confidence in the Prime Minister. Following a slew of Partygate revelations, the MP for North West Leicestershire made the announcement with a heavy heart, writing, "There is currently a moral vacuum at the heart of our government. Sadly, the Prime Minister's position has become untenable." Well, he's now made a dramatic U-turn and torn up that letter, saying it would be an indulgence to hold a vote of no confidence during the war. And he's not the only one, with Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross also rescinding his letter to the 1922 committee, declaring Bojo deserves support as the conflict rages on. And I'm delighted to say Andrew Bridgen joins me now. So, Andrew, did you get it wrong on Boris? Because actually, he's been a statesman, hasn't he, over the past few weeks?
He has, and he's had to be. He's led the country, and that's why I've withdrawn my letter. I think Einstein said, when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do? And the facts have changed. We're now effectively, certainly on an economic war footing. We're very nearly on a physical war footing.
Yeah.
And to indulge in trying to remove the Prime Minister or some sort of internecine warfare within the Conservative Party, it only helps our enemies. And as we know now, we have more of those than we thought we did.
Well, of course, and I wonder if this is a bit of a wake-up call to the whole party, that this isn't a game, is it? Isn't it? Because one of the reasons that I continued supporting Boris Johnson and didn't like this Partygate campaign is that we don't know what's coming up. And because of your party's policy, a leadership election contest would be very unsettling and it would take quite a long time.
It would destabilise the government, it would destabilise the country at a time of national emergency, effectively. We are facing huge threats, exacerbated by the situation in Ukraine, an energy crisis, rising prices, which, you know, inflation at levels which half of our population, the younger half of our population, have never experienced. And it's a time now to get behind the Prime Minister, because that's actually getting behind the country.
No, and I completely agree with all of that. But look, talk to me about the raw politics, because you're one of the most connected men in Westminster. You know what your Tory colleagues are thinking. Is there a lot of people withdrawing letters?
Well, I think there would be actually nobody would be putting one in at the moment. I mean, that would be ludicrous. So I think there are...
because it came pretty close, didn't it? It came closer than what a lot of people thought to sparking that confidence.
There have been some good changes in the personnel at Number 10, those around and advising the Prime Minister. David Canzini's come into Number 10 as a deputy head. I tried to get him in after the 19 election. I again recommended him when Cummings left, and now he's in. And I mean, he's a wise head for the Conservative Party, a great campaigner, and a proper Conservative.
Has Boris proven that he could be a great leader?
He certainly had the opportunity. The events of Boris's prime ministership, I mean, he's been bombarded. We had the Brexit.
That's a bad hand, right?
Well, they say he's a lucky politician, but he hasn't been very lucky far as the events that have come forward. So we had the Brexit crisis, and he broke through there. We've had the biggest pandemic for 100 years, and he's dealt with that. And now the figures are all coming out that we actually did rather better than France and Germany. Our economy's rebounded, and we're ahead of where we were pre-COVID. And I think we had 5 hours from when we perhaps belatedly got the government to reduce the COVID restrictions. We could have gone earlier, but 5 hours after we got out of that crisis, then Putin invades the Ukraine. I mean, it's relentless. Anyone who thinks that the job of being Prime Minister is a cakewalk, I mean, just look at how it ages them to start with.
Did you tell him personally that you were withdrawing your letter?
I passed it through channels, yes, through Number 10 staff to tell him. Before I did.
Is he forgiving?
That's up to the Prime Minister. I think he knows how politics works. You know,
he seems forgiving. It seems like he just wants to unite his party now. He doesn't want to seek revenge against the people who put the letters, and that's the sense that I get anyway.
That wouldn't be a good policy, would it? Really?
No.
And, you know, what we've got to deal with is the situation before us. We need to have a united party.
Is there any way that Partygate still finishes them off? Because, look, I'm sick of talking about it, but of course, the Grey report still hasn't come. We still don't know if he's going to receive the action from the police.
And also, we don't know what Mr. Cummings has got in his locker that he's going to throw out there. I mean, he's a clever tactician. He'll know that he won't fire bullets at Boris when he's not going to hit him, and he wouldn't hit him now because of international events. But this international crisis is not going to be over quickly, and I do worry about how many more innocent people are going to be sacrificed on the altar of Putin's pride.
No, indeed. Well, look, I'm done with it. I'm done with Partygate. I really am. I just hope that this crisis has woken people up. It was a story that the mainstream media focused on relentlessly for weeks and weeks and weeks. I hope now that we can treat the report and everything with the pinch of salt that it deserves. But Andrew Bridgen, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Now, coming up, as Emmanuel Macron leads election polls and, as I was just saying, Partygate forgotten in the face of a real crisis. Has the Ukraine war secretly been good for Western politicians? We'll debate that at 10. But next, are the SNP responsible for turning Scotland into a hotbed of Anglophobia? That's the astonishing claim of a Conservative councillor. And GB News star Mark Dolan joins me to analyse the effect of scheming Sturgeon's policies of division. That's in The Outsider straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Now, our birthday boy, Mark Dolan, is tonight's outsider. Before we talk about the big celebration, is the SNP's rabid nationalism in danger of turning Scotland into a hotbed of Anglophobia? Well, that's the fear of Conservative councillors north of the border who say in some parts it's more of an issue than Islamophobia. They claim to have fielded more complaints of discrimination from, quote, minority group English constituents than Muslims in the SNP-controlled region of Moray, which this week committed to stamping out Islamophobia. One councillor even claimed to have directly suffered abuse when he was told to go back to England because of his weak Perth accent. Now, Moray Council has now agreed in principle to treat Anglophobia as seriously as Islamophobia, but is this row a symptom of greater tensions in Scotland fuelled by the divisive rhetoric of Nicola Sturgeon? Mark Dolan, happy birthday first up, and what do you make of this?
Well, look, it's a terrible story. It's very shocking. I lived in Scotland for 4 years, Dan. I studied at the University of Edinburgh, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And let me tell you, the Scottish people do not have an intolerant bone in their bodies. The SNP, Dan, is not Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon is not Scotland. But what that party have done is performed a land grab of Scotland's great institutions, its economy, and they're having a go at basically manipulating Scottish society to hate the English. Anglophobia, they're calling it. That is another form of racism, another form of intolerance. A hatred of the English and a demonisation of Westminster has been a key tool with which Nicola Sturgeon has pursued her independence cause. But it won't work because it's based on lies, it's based on a smear, it's toxic, and I believe that in time, the good people of Scotland will reject it. But it's nasty, and it's certainly culpable of the SNP to indulge in this kind of politics, but not the Scottish people.
No, I think you're right, Mark, but it's interesting that it's something that she really used over the COVID crisis, right, to stoke that division with England.
Well, she really did, and she was endlessly trying to upstage a man you were just talking about, Boris Johnson, by making COVID announcements ahead of Boris Johnson, just to steal the limelight, or sometimes seeking to bounce him into decisions. Even now, Scotland have pursued further mask mandates into April, just to show how different Scotland is. It's about flexing her political muscles. It's about optics. It's not about health. And the bottom line is that England is being treated like public enemy number one, whereas England is actually Scotland's great ally, great friend. The United Kingdom is the most successful political union in the world. It's something to be proud of. It's an economic and political powerhouse globally, and she wants to dismantle that. And she won't succeed. I think if there was an independence vote tomorrow, I think that the Scots would stay. And it's because of this nasty politics that I think in the end it will backfire, Dan.
I agree.
Look how
but Mark, I'm going to
Britain's
interrupt
been in the
you
pandemic.
because I have to ask what you're doing for your big birthday, apart from being with us, which I'm so grateful for, by the way.
Mrs. Dolan's cooked a couple of steaks, which is very, very nice. So I've had the kids around. We've been at home. It's been low-key. It's almost been like lockdown, I'll be honest, Dan. And the reason why is because I can't imagine a better way to celebrate my birthday than doing it with you, GB News' best staff.
Well, we're both Pisces, you know, and Pisces are the best. So have an amazing night, Mark. And Mark will be here, of course, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday at 9. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight as the UK sends 100 troops and a high-tech missile system to Poland to defend against Russia. Has the Ukraine war secretly been good for Western politicians like Boris and Macron, who are coming under fire at home? And has it rehabilitated the image of Donald Trump on the international stage? I'll get the view of my superstar panel next. The Star Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, Conservative commentator Dominic Samuelson, the author and journalist Amy Nicole. After revealing he's willing to testify against Meghan in the legal battle between his daughters.
My daughter and her ginger husband in a courtroom. I'd be thrilled to come to court and talk and defend my oldest daughter.
What family skeletons might Thomas Markle reveal in their courtroom showdown, and how does he feel about his son-in-law Prince Harry refusing to attend Prince Philip's memorial? His first interview since launching his headline-making YouTube channel here at 10:20. Why are the left now calling Russell Brand a conspiracy theorist because he dares to question the mainstream media narrative? With social media sensation and free speech champion Zuby. We'll investigate that in Uncancelled at 10:40. Have Matt Lucas and David Walliams capitulated to the woke mob by editing Little Britain? And almost 15 years after it was confirmed by J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter fans have got to see Dumbledore's homosexuality portrayed on screen for the first time.
It's what we said we'd do. Because I was in love with you.
But will this appease the woke mob hell-bent on cancelling the author for her trans views? We'll explore both those topics and more in the media buzz throughout the next hour. That's also, we'll get a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and as ever, brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, the last for the week, revealed just before 11, so make sure you stay up with us tonight. But before all of that, the news headlines at 10 with Miranda Shunka.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. An inquiry is underway after 2 cabinet ministers admitted they've been targeted by hoax phone calls. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says an imposter posing as the Ukrainian Prime Minister was able to reach him on the telephone, a move he's described as Russian dirty tricks. Meanwhile, Home Secretary Priti Patel has revealed that she was also a target last week. She described the incident as a pathetic attempt to divide us. P&O Ferries have made hundreds of staff redundant in what company officials say is a bid to save the operator. 800 staff were fired with immediate effect via video message after the firm made losses of £100 million. The announcement led to protests in Dover, and staff refused to leave a P&O ferry in Hull. Transport Minister Robert Courts told the Commons the way workers were informed of job losses was completely unacceptable.
These are hard-working,
dedicated staff who have given years in service to P&O. The way they have been treated today is wholly unacceptable. Reports of workers being given zero notice and escorted off their ships with immediate effect, while being told cheaper alternatives would take up their roles, shows the insensitive way in which P&O have approached this issue.
In Ukraine, Mariupol's city council says around 30,000 people have now managed to leave the besieged city. It comes as the Red Cross called on Russia to allow civilians a safe passage out and for aid to be brought in. Ukrainian officials say over 350,000 people are still sheltering there. The Premier League fixture between Newcastle and Everton tonight has been interrupted for several minutes as a protester tied himself to a goalpost. The game was stopped just 5 minutes after kick-off as a man wearing a Stop Oil T-shirt stormed the field. He was only removed after half a dozen people and bolt cutters were deployed. A group claiming responsibility say the government is betraying us by funding new oil fields in the North Sea. And the first family selfie has been released showing Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, her husband Richard and 7-year-old daughter Gabriella. The image was posted by the family's MP Tulip Sadiq. She described the couple as relentless in their pursuit of justice, revealing they'd already raised the plight of another detainee in Iran, Morad Tabaz. Nazanin returned to the UK in the early hours of this morning after being detained for 6 years in Iran. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in, and the Metro lead with ferry operator P&O facing mutiny on its ships today after firing 800 members of its crew. In a pre-recorded video message, staff were told they were being replaced by cheaper agency workers, and in riposte, many sealed themselves inside the vessels until they were removed by security guards in balaclavas. The Independent reports that a full Russian attack on Kiev may never happen, as Western officials raise doubts over whether Putin is prepared to pay the huge costs that it would incur. Well, please God, let's hope he doesn't. And my superstar panel. Back with me now, top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. Now, breaking tonight, French President Emmanuel Macron has warned that the war in Ukraine could spread westwards and engulf Europe.
Our forces are the only fully fledged army on the European continent. We need to prepare for a possible high-intensity armed conflict and increase investment in the army.
Macron's response to Russia's invasion has seen his popularity rise in France. He now holds a 10-point lead over Marine Le Pen ahead of next month's presidential election. And he even had this physical makeover, didn't he? Channeling Europe's poster boy, Volodymyr Zelensky, wearing jeans and a khaki hoodie while working nights and weekends at the Elysee Palace, avoiding traditional campaign activities to focus on Ukraine. How convenient. But a leadership renaissance is happening here too. As we spoke about earlier in the show with Andrew Bridge, and Tory MPs have seemingly forgot Partygate and starting to tear up their letters of no confidence, with Boris the statesman doing his party and country proud on the international stage. And Donald Trump having a real resurgence too. His warning of Europe's reliance on Russian energy has seen the former leader of the free world, I think, viewed in a different way by many folk who wanted to bring him down for 4 years.
I think it's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries, and then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia, where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country controlled by Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened.
Do not tell me he was wrong. You know it. You know it. Now, Ukraine and its leaders have endured hell in the 3 weeks since Russia invaded, and we all pray for a swift conclusion to the conflict, as we said at the start of the show. But I want to talk politics, Sarah Vine. I do want to talk politics here because it matters, doesn't it? There's an election to come in France imminently, and this crisis seems to have solidified Boris Johnson and really weakened Joe Biden ahead of the midterms in November. So on the whole, how do you think this war has now changed?
Well, I think the reason Trump's
politics?
had a bit of a bounce is because he at least knows which country Russian is invading, which is useful to know. I mean, Biden's not.
And he can tell the difference between his wife and his vice president.
Exactly,
and was what Biden couldn't do yesterday.
Yeah, so it's that. Yeah, so it's really exposed the flaws in Biden.
Well, it has, and he doesn't have a strong vice president.
And he doesn't have a strong vice president. And Nancy Pelosi isn't entirely.
It feels like she's in cloud cuckoo land these days.
I have no idea where she is, but maybe
she's having a lot of fun, but we don't want her in any position of responsibility.
No, exactly. Maybe there's... I'm not going to say it, but anyway. So that's them. And I think Macron's hilarious with his stubble. Did you see his stubble? Because manly stubble. Manly, sexy stubble.
This really annoyed Dominique.
Manly, sexy stubble, because I'm ready. And I don't think about my, shaving, because I'm such a man now. I have to do man things.
Working so hard.
So that was funny.
And I'm just avoiding doing any election campaigning, by the way, because that's the best way to increase
and of course, and also... And the war is good business for someone like him. And you heard him saying, Europe has to prepare. We have to be, you have to trust me because, this could come to us and then I would have to be even more important than I currently am, which is really important. And so there's this sort of sense of... But there is also something about perspective because, in the normal sort of run of things, we get obsessed with little stories and gossip and tittle-tattle and Westminster bubble stuff because when there's nothing really big going on, that's what we gravitate towards. But when something like this happens, which is so deadly serious, then it does give us perspective and it does remind us of the important stuff. And I think, and I wish to God it wasn't happening in that way. But
Boris, who was on the ropes. I mean, he was on the ropes, and it doesn't feel like he's even close to that.
He is still on the ropes. I mean, if we look at the polling at the moment, Labour's still leading.
Just.
Well, it's the biggest lead since 2013.
It's significantly narrowed, though, since the start of this war.
It's interesting you say that, though, because she's mentioned polling. I admittedly did not know that. I didn't know that because Partygate, COVID, it seems to have disappeared.
No, it hasn't disappeared though. It's done in the media.
No, but in the media, not literally,
in the media,
but in the media. And with regards to Macron, what's funny about Macron is he conveniently removed all restrictions on the unvaccinated, got rid of vaccine passports in France a month before he's due to be re-elected. So not only do people have this illusion of freedom, they also have the illusion of Macron being this big, strong European leader that's going to help them through a war. With regards to Biden, he's got a get-out-of-jail-free card because he's put the sanctions on Russia, gas prices rising. He can say, and he said this several times, as has Nancy Pelosi, it's Putin that's done this to your gas prices and not our catastrophic handling of the American
when the prices were already soaring, as you make the good point. Sarah, what do you make of Amy's point that the media might have moved on from Partygate, but maybe the voters haven't?
I think she's right. I think she's right. I did say this a while ago in the paper. I do think that it's going to be a problem on the doorstep for him for a while to come. We've got the local elections coming up in May, and it would be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, it might mitigate it slightly, but I do think people are still very angry about it, and actually, I think rightly so, to be honest.
The media is very schizophrenic, though, isn't it? Well, because up until a couple of weeks ago,
what are you saying? Of course we're not.
You would have thought that. You would have thought that this guy was
Gone.
impossible to lead the country through a crisis.
I think he's still proving himself impossible. Like with the recent response to the refugee crisis, I think that put a really bad.
But Amy, we have established with you that unless we literally fling open our borders and allow anyone to come whenever they want, you will not be happy with Boris.
My ex-husband has done a brilliant job, I think, on refugees, and I will say that live on air because I think he has done. And I think they were ill-prepared, and I think they misjudged the mood a little bit. I don't think they realised how much the Brits really cared about the refugees, and then when they did, they moved quite fast.
I feel like the response now is so not exactly as straightforward as it appears. So we're saying you can house a refugee, which is really not realistic for many households, is it, really?
Where else are you going to put them?
And you're not going to know who is going to be in your house.
Thank you.
You could potentially feel a bit daunted, a bit unsafe. The matching process isn't really there.
No, but it was never going to be perfect, was it? It was never going to be perfect because we're at a time of war, we're at a time of crisis.
Intentionally imperfect to make it so impractical.
Well, I'll let Sarah answer.
No, I don't think. No, I don't think it is. I just think it.
I think we did the best we could quickly.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I mean, it's interesting you mention your ex-husband though, because of course you could also say it's embarrassing for the government for him to always have to be brought in as this troubleshooter any time they have a crisis.
He's just he's very good at getting things done. I mean, he is a really.
And it had to be done quickly.
And it had to be done quickly. I mean, Liz Truss has also had I think what she managed to do this week was extraordinary.
I think Liz Truss has. I'm sorry, no. I think she doesn't have a clue.
All of my panels are divided on this one. In Liz we trust, I say after this week. Now, I'm proud to say I've never read a word or watched a second of Harry Potter in my life. But apparently this is a big deal in the world of wizard fanatics, so here goes. Stick with me on this. Fans of the franchise spin-off Fantastic Beasts, or the politically correct ones at least, are ecstatic after a new clip from the upcoming film Secrets of Dumbledore depicted the hero's homosexuality for the first time.
What you're doing is madness. Dumbledore, with or without you, I'll burn down their world. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Do you really intend to turn your back on your own kind? Huh? It was you who said we could reshape the world. It's what we said we'd do. Because I was in love with you.
Dumbledore's Profession of Love in the movie, which stars Jude Law as the Hogwarts professor and Casino Royale's Mads Mikkelsen as rival magician Grindelwald, previously played by Johnny Depp, comes almost 15 years after Potter author J.K. Rowling first confirmed the character's sexuality. And call me cynical, but perhaps this is the former millennial darling's attempt to get back in favour with the fan base who have turned on her over her trans view. Sarah Vine, you're a big fan. Is this going to be enough to appease the mob?
I've read all the books to my children 700 times. I've watched all the films 700 times. It was always clear that Dumbledore was gay. He was a very nice single gentleman living on his own with just a phoenix and some very flamboyant robes. I mean, no one ever...
all goes over my head. So this isn't a shock to you? This is not a shock to you?
No, this is not a shock to me.
Okay.
No, I don't think it will appease the transgender people.
No, nothing going to appease them, is it?
It will make them happy at all.
Sarah Vine, Dominic Samuels, Amy Nicole, do stand by because coming up, my superstar panel return to answer whether Matt Lucas and David Williams have capitulated to the woke mob by editing Little Britain. We'll tackle that at 10:30, plus more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But next, will Meghan come to regret her appalling behaviour towards her own family as a Markle courtroom showdown looms? Her estranged father, Thomas, sits down with me for his first interview since launching his headline-making YouTube channel. That's straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. We're back, and I'm delighted to cross to Rosarito, Mexico, where we're joined by our friend Thomas Markle, the father of the Duchess of Sussex, who in the past week has launched a new career as a YouTuber. Now, look, I think this is brilliant, Thomas, because so much has been said about you, and now you finally have the chance to put your side of the story to the world unedited. But I was wondering, Thomas, are you worried that Harry and Meghan might end up suing you for something you say, given you know they're very friendly with their lawyers, aren't they?
Well, they can sue me, but what are they going to get? I mean, I don't have millions of dollars. They can't get, you know, Harry and Meghan are living like hermits in a 26-room house. They don't have, they never have parties. They never have guests. I think the only guests they have are their $1 million lawyers and their $1 million PR team. Otherwise, it's Harry walking his dogs or riding his bicycle.
It's weird, isn't it? So look, Thomas,
I don't mind it.
So I'll come to them in a moment, but talk to me about your new career as a YouTuber. What sparked it?
Well, I was listening to and watching some of the women on YouTube. Lady Colin Campbell, for
great woman, great woman.
Couple, yeah, and they got me interested in trying it out. And the first time out, it worked pretty good. I got to say the things I wanted to say, and we got, I guess, about 13,000 or 14,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
More than that now. I think it's going up fast the last time that I checked, and that is a very good start, isn't it? And of course, Thomas, your family has been in the news a lot over the past couple of weeks because your other daughter, Samantha Markle, a woman who you know I have a lot of respect for, and I've said publicly, and I will say it again because I know she's the subject at the moment of quite a vicious attack by the liberal American media. But I will say on the record again, Samantha Markle has never told me a lie. Every single thing that she has said about either you or Meghan has checked out factually. And she is now suing Meghan. You're prepared to testify for Samantha against Meghan? Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're talking about the book. The things in the book are lies. That's the whole thing. The Scooby character gets information from Meghan, but
odd little man.
It's all lies. Also, apparently now, Harry has shut down Meghan's Twitter account, which is ridiculous because if he's shutting down all of the people that have been going after Meghan, there won't be any Twitter left. I mean, he'll.
You mean, I think
makes no sense.
Samantha's Twitter account has been shut down, hasn't it?
By Harry, yes, and it's ridiculous.
So sorry, just to clarify, Thomas, because I wasn't aware of this. So you think Harry has made a direct complaint about Samantha's Twitter account?
Yes, that's the understanding. That apparently he knows the person who runs Twitter, and but the bottom line is, if you, I mean,
Jack Dorsey, yeah.
if you go after Meghan constantly, and there are thousands of people that are doing it, and if Harry has to go and get rid of all those thousands of people, there won't be a Twitter left. There won't be Twitter anymore.
No,
so, not that I think that's.
How
I think that's a plus.
Disappointing is it, Thomas, that this feud has reached the point where you might actually have to choose to back one of your daughters over another in court?
Well, to be honest with you, I love both my daughters. I'm not happy with what one of my daughters is doing. And I don't know what caused her to do this. We've had this conversation before, but she's telling lies, and she's been telling lies about me. She's been telling lies about my son. I have no problem facing her in court and disputing what she has to say. I'd be the first time I've seen her in 4 years.
I know. How sad.
Last time I talked to them, I was in a hospital bed.
It's not just you, Thomas, who's our snubbing now. Can you believe that neither Prince Harry or your daughter are going to travel to the UK for the memorial service to Prince Philip as a result of this feud that's going on with the British government over Harry's security? I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Queen recently, Thomas. She doesn't look that well. I mean, she's still healthy, mentally she's well, but you know, she's 95 years old. Can you believe Harry is going to deny the Queen the opportunity to meet Lilibet, your granddaughter, who he named after the Queen?
I think it's the cruelest, meanest thing he can do. And I have no respect for this man at all. To not go and honor his grandfather, then not go to the Jubilee, to deny the children to the Queen, it's unforgivable. He should and to complain about security is crazy. There'll be tons of security around there. He's just making up excuses. This is crazy. Then the other thing is he's going to the Invictus Games.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks later.
Which really, yeah. I mean, this has to hurt the Queen, you know. And she's been through so much. She lost her husband, and she lost Harry, and he won't come back. And he's acting like a child. I have no respect for him at all.
I understand that the other big piece.
I make jokes about him because.
You go, Thomas.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I make jokes about him to try to get his attention, try to get them to come after me, because I never get to speak to them.
I know, it's so sad. But Thomas, as I say, it's not just you now, it's also Harry's relationship with his own father, which is in trouble. I don't know if you've heard about this, but the big piece of royal news over the past couple of months, the Queen confirmed that Camilla is going to become Queen Consort when she dies and Charles takes the throne.
Right.
Harry and Meghan refused to publicly congratulate Camilla. There's now growing speculation that he is going to attack Camilla in his autobiography. So it feels like they've fallen out with both their dads.
I don't understand what they're doing. Like I said, they live alone in a 26-room house, and they don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. Their charities don't accomplish anything. I don't know what Harry does besides walking his dogs and riding his bike. Well, I mean, this man abandoned his country, and he expects them now to treat him like a royal. Well, he left the royals. He's not a royal anymore, and he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be entitled to any of this stuff. And what he's done to the Queen is unforgivable.
We have had confirmation today, Thomas, that Meghan's podcast with Spotify is going to be released this summer. It's simply called Meghan. Now, they had apparently been talking about potentially having a big fallout with Spotify because of the Joe Rogan podcast. What's your take on that whole situation?
I don't know much about it. I just heard about it. I don't know what the connection about Joe Rogan is. Apparently, I guess Meghan doesn't approve of him. I think it's an anything goes situation. I mean, if they're not happy with him, then don't do it. But I don't know that they'll follow through anyway. They haven't followed through on anything.
No.
They haven't done or accomplished anything.
What did you think about their message to the people of Ukraine?
What was the message?
Well, it was very brief.
What was the what? Well, I mean, you know, I mean, what message can you give to the Ukraine except say God bless the Ukraine and give them some power? You know, what Harry and Meghan should do is get their checkbooks out and send it to Poland, send it to the Ukraine, and help some of these people. There's 2 million people displaced in Poland. I mean, someone's got to help them, and they have a charity. They should start using it, start spending that money. You know, no one seems to know what they're doing with it.
No.
So
it's very bizarre. It is very bizarre. But Thomas, you know I always love talking to you. Tell me, when's your next YouTube video coming?
Well, probably in maybe this week.
Love it.
There are a lot of things to talk about. We'll see how it goes. It's something I'm having to get used to because I spent years on the other side of this camera, not this side.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, I'm having tea. I wanted you to see I'm having tea today.
You're so English in your approach these days, Thomas. You're going to have to come and visit us very soon, maybe for the Queen's Jubilee.
I'm with the Queen.
I love it. Well, Thomas, thank you so much. As I say, I love the YouTube channel. Congratulations. Now a YouTuber, Thomas Markle. Thomas will speak again very soon. Thank you so much. But coming up, why are the left now calling Russell Brand a conspiracy theorist because he's questioning the mainstream media narrative? Well, rapper and free speech activist Zuby tackles that in Uncancelled at 10:40. But next, as Matt Lucas and David Walliams capitulate to the woke mob by editing Little Britain, will cancelling offensive comedy put us on a communist-style path towards erasing our cultural heritage? My superstar panel return to debate that next, plus more newspaper front pages delivered too. All of that coming up straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube. You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. And more front pages have just been delivered. The Daily Telegraph leads with the story that Russians have targeted Priti Patel and Ben Wallace with fake video calls. Mr. Wallace has ordered an inquiry into the call, which he said had been properly set up and requested through a government department via an email in the name of an aide at the Ukrainian embassy. Of course, I spoke to the Ukrainian deputy PM earlier, who said she's convinced this is the work of the Russians. Also on the front page, Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch has slammed the teaching of race ideology in schools as absolutely terrifying and declared children should not be taking the knee. Hear, hear. Russia has been accused of war crimes by 6 countries today: Britain, the US, France, Albania, Ireland and Norway, after bombing a school and theatre. Paris also claimed that Putin is only pretending when he expresses interest in a peace deal. That's worrying. And there's a beautiful photo there of Nazanin Zaghari, Ratcliffe's reunited family, of course, too. Here's the eye. It leads with the news that, according to Western officials, a Russian ground assault on Kiev may never happen due to supply issues and fierce Ukrainian resistance. And UK ministers believe peace talks are a smokescreen too. The Sun, this is a good headline actually, leads on the heartless P&O bosses who axed 800 staff in a 3-minute video call. Their headline, what a bunch of anchors. Like that a lot. And the Daily Mail also leads with today's mutiny on the P&O ferries. And Mail columnist Richard Kay asks, did Martin Bashir's lies mean Diana died convinced that her most loyal aide, her private secretary, Commander Patrick Jepson, had betrayed her? This is a fascinating story, this payout today by the BBC. What trouble they are in with the royal family. And in the Times, Ukraine takes fight to Putin after Zelensky's forces launch a counterattack against stalled Russian positions. Evidence emerged today that Putin has lost at least 7,000 troops and over 200 tanks in the conflict so far. And following a Times investigation, the paper can reveal that hundreds of civil servants working for the DVLA did zero work on full pay for significant periods of the pandemic, as managers boasted about watching Netflix at the public's expense. Oh my goodness, I can feel my rage bubbling over about that. Sarah Vine's here, so too. Dominic Samuels and Amy Nicole. I mean, we've known that, haven't we?
That's why I haven't got my logbook back.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You can't book anything, you can't get a test, you can't get a passport because they are all at home watching Netflix.
I suppose it's better than being on a Peloton, which is what the civil servants were all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Small mercies. Now, the legendary comedy series Little Britain has been allowed to return to BBC iPlayer after being cancelled by joyless snowflakes, but only after the removal of some of its more controversial characters. Bosses at the BBC banned the sitcom 2 years ago without any credible explanation, merely saying that times have changed since the show first aired. You know it was at the time of BLM. So creators and stars David Walliams and Matt Lucas have now given in to the comedy killing woke mob by censoring themselves and deleting sketches from the show. A spokesman for the BBC said the cuts were made to, quote, better reflect the changes in the cultural landscape since the show was first made. As part of the show's resurrection, blackface character Desiree de Vere, played by Williams, has been axed from episodes. So too has Black Reverend Jesse King and Thai bride Ting Tong Macadangdang, both played by Lucas. But what's curious is there are a host of controversial characters and scenes that the BBC didn't take issue with, like the only gay in the village, Stafford Thomas, remember him? Or the transvestites, Emily and Florence, with their famed "I'm a lady" catchphrase. Now, to my mind, this is rank hypocrisy from the BBC, who arrogantly believe they can dictate to us the woke standards of 2022. And I actually wrote a column for the Mail Online about this today, because my point is that by giving in to the cancel culture mob and editing out sequences from the show deemed inappropriate to our puritanical identity politics obsessed new era where Black Lives Matter ideology dominates liberal institutions, the BB's put itself on a slippery slope towards the sorts of censorship of our cultural heritage that we used to see in communist regimes. Well, that's what I think. Dominique Samuels, what is so interesting about this, though, is that lots of the scenes that they have allowed to remain, the BBC, are out and out discriminatory against lesbians, against Chinese people, against little people. Now, by the way, I have no issue with that. To me, it's all comedy, it's all fun. Yeah. But it feels like the BBC only think blackface is bad, but homophobia, racism against the Chinese, and discrimination against dwarfs, that's okay.
But you've just said it is okay.
I do think it's okay.
With it.
I completely think it's okay.
Comedy, which kicks all the issues into the long grass.
Correct, but I'm talking about the fact that they are censoring some parts of the series, Dominic.
And if you can't pick and choose what's acceptable in the cultural landscape, because then it makes you look like a hypocrite. Because I could easily then say, which executive at the BBC is homophobic? Which executive at the BBC is ableist and racist against Chinese people? And I think they probably allowed those bits, because if they didn't, there'd be nothing flipping left. The whole thing is supposed to be
Well, it's already been cut down from about 30 minutes to 23 minutes. Amy, surely you must understand, even from your lefty woke position, that actually, comedy is meant to offend. It's meant to shock. It's meant to make you gasp in horror. And if you don't like it, by the way, if you don't like that type of comedy, do not watch it, and that's fine.
Well, firstly, it's not censorship to take something off of iPlayer.
It is.
It's wrong.
It absolutely is.
Little Britain was wrong then. It's wrong now, it's quite incredible that it has been able to even come back. When it was booted away, that was probably the best thing, because it deserves to be in the bin. If we look at it...
Sarah Vine, you can be the deciding vote on this.
I always thought Little Britain was incredibly funny because it was rude about absolutely everybody.
At the expense,
it was equal opportunities in Salta.
Absolutely everyone.
It was equal opportunities. They had those wonderful two old ladies who were so racist that if someone ever mentioned anything from sort of anywhere sort of south of Brighton, they'd immediately vomit. Do you remember those two?
Making fun of those
It's making fun of those idiots.
Yeah.
I just think...
It's encouraging people to make
No, but I also think
it's not.
Look at what it did for single mums. The whole Vicky Pollard stereotype.
Funny. And I think it's
completely reflected the attitudes of the
time. But you're too young to remember things like Wayne and Waynetta. And all the Harry Enfield sketches, which were equally sort of risque. I mean,
but you see warnings or censorship happening on all of these sitcoms, like the young ones, Hello, Fawlty Towers, of course.
Yes.
But Amy...
Monty Python.
Monty Python,
but
I mean, that would never
like
get made.
Love Thy Neighbour, Curry and Chips, those have been taken off.
But they were different.
You won't access those. They're taken off BritBox. And it's interesting because a lot of the shows that have been taken off everywhere else, Little Britain has been taken off, but somehow the BBC have chosen to keep it. And I find that really curious.
Because it's good. It's funny.
It's funny.
But see, my view, and maybe you'll disagree with this, but my view is that all of those shows, even those shows that you named, should remain accessible to people
because culture.
Well, yeah, and they're part of our history. Okay. And the thing is, how do we learn from looking back at our history and thinking, well, that's different. Isn't it funny that people could say that in 2003 and it's not acceptable 2 decades on?
Everything involves blackface.
It's very easy to forget.
I'm sorry to say that it's blackface. I feel as though it's literal middle-class white people from London who clearly don't have a clue. I don't need you to be offended on my behalf. It's not blackface, it's funny. It was just funny. And if it
That dressing up as a character.
Yeah, the dressing up as a character. It's a character, and there was a white fat lady as well that was.
But that's fine. The white fat lady in the sauna, she remains, by the way. It's just the black-faced lady who's gone.
White lady to be fair.
So it's fine for Matt Lucas, by the way, who isn't a lady, to mock a obese white lady, but it's not okay.
No, it's not
for
okay
him.
because
to-
blackface represents the denigration of a people. It justified violence against black people.
Do you think that's what they were thinking?
But that's not what
they're
doing. That is the foundation of blackface. Whether you like it or not, the way it's used now is a follow-on from the way it was first used in the 70s.
But isn't the point, Amy, isn't the point now that, OK, fine, there has been this cultural revolution post-BLM, so now no new comedies that are made will feature blackface. But I'm talking about the retrospective editing of our cultural heritage, and this is a slippery slope. I know some people say, oh, it's just Little Britain, but this is a slippery slope.
By the way, it wasn't just blackface, she was entirely covered in...
Yeah, it was the literal costume. She looked like a black woman.
Just a naked,
no one was
naked
watching
woman.
it. It was left in a void, and this has just got us all talking about it again, and I think it's really curious.
No, but it's just
If it was up to me,
I genuinely believe... So for me, my favourite TV series of all time, right, is Mad Men. And that is only about a decade old. I genuinely believe Mad Men would not be made today because it's a series that goes through the civil rights revolution of the 60s, and it is full of homophobia, racism and sexism, and it wouldn't be made
completely
today.
different because it's depicting racism and it's depicting homophobia. What blackface is doing is something completely different, and it's just fueling something that has
No, but I
foundations.
think what people are going down, the route they're going down in the creative sector now, is the Netflix Bridgerton route, which is let's just pretend that everything was fine and we can do period drama and we'll give it 2022 value.
The thing about Williams and Lucas is it was those two doing those sketches. So whatever character they were trying to inhabit, they had to dress up or to look like them. They weren't doing blackface to offend black people.
Yeah.
They were doing it because the character was
And as you say, it was equal opportunities
and it was
because they were the only people who started it.
Everybody on so many levels.
No, indeed.
And I think that the problem with sanitising things like this is that you forget that there is a darker side to these sorts of behaviours, and it's important to remember that they exist. But if you take them out, it's like I always think it's like International Holocaust Memorial Day. It's really important to remember that there was a man who killed 4 million Jews. It's not a nice thing to have to remember, but if we expunge that from the culture, which you could argue that you might want to because it's such a horrible, painful thing,
what it looks like.
then you might live in a world where you think
very
actually,
important point, and that's why we can't.
There's no anti-Semitism. If you expunge any sort of question around colour from the culture, then you might think that there is a world where racism doesn't exist and never exists.
Exactly.
But
And
then
that's
at
not
the very
true.
least, it needs to come with an explanation and a
Fine, I don't mind an explanation, it's fine.
Trigger warning, fine. Now, Amy's in green today because it's St. Patrick's Day, which means millions of people across the world are several Guinnesses deep right now and hopefully having the time of their lives while watching us. The celebration's honouring our friends all across Ireland, bound to be cathartic, as St. Patrick's Day was one of the first major events to be curtailed by the pandemic. So compare these scenes of Dublin. They at the bare streets of 2020 and 2021 to this afternoon, and it's astonishing to think how far we have come. The city's famous Temple Bar, which you saw barricaded in that footage, was stocked up and ready to go today. They posted this mind-blowing footage, actually, of their kegs stacked to the ceiling in preparation. Even dogs, there you go, getting into the spirit with these adorable mutts. Slurping down non-alcoholic puppy pints, by the way, let me stress. And I love this. Happens every year, but the city of Chicago this week resurrected its annual green transformation of its river, a tradition that started in 1962 but had been put on hold because of the pandemic. And calm down, Greta. The dye used is an eco-friendly mix made from vegetables, so there's just no need to send that grumpy tweet. And it's also great to see. I'm green with everyone out celebrating right now. Sarah Vine, Dominic Samuels, Amy Nicole do stand by. And actually coming up, why is Sarah joining me and saying, "In Liz we trust"? Find out as I crown today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But next, why are the left now calling Russell Brand a conspiracy theorist because he's questioning the mainstream media narrative? Free speech activist Zuby tackles the left's callous attempts to cancel the UK's answer to Joe Rogan. Just after we take a very quick look at what's coming up on Monday's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, are we finally about to get answers on the extent of the COVID vaccine's damaging side effects? The man forcing Parliament to confront the pandemic's most taboo subject, Sir Christopher Chope, will be here to discuss his vaccine damage bill. Plus, founder of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young, and GB News star Neil Oliver bring a reasoned approach to the topics leading the news agenda. And I'll break down the headlines of the day with my superstar panel. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and political commentator Esther Kraku. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. The left's woke mob eating themselves, and the next to be served up on the altar of cancellation is the one-time lefty icon, Liberal comedian Russell Brand. He's come under fire because his hugely popular YouTube channel, which boasts more than 5 million subscribers, and it's actually earned him comparisons to Joe Rogan, interrogates the narrative often pushed by the mainstream media. This hysterical hit piece in The Independent dishonestly scolded Brand for being a dangerous conspiracy theorist, using this episode, in which he correctly calls out COVID dictator Justin Trudeau's hypocritical condemnation of Putin, as a misguided example.
Trudeau lost his authority to comment on issues like this when he treated the truckers in the manner that he did, when they introduced emergency powers and then did not revoke them, that gave them the ability to freeze people's bank accounts. That is an assault on democracy. There's no question that Russia's actions in Ukraine are deplorable, but what right do you have to offer that critique when you are no real friend of democracy? And
what's so dangerous about that? Skepticism and free speech used to be key pillars of our media landscape, but nowadays anyone who dares to question the left's groupthink is branded a threat to society. Well, I'm delighted to say that the rapper and activist Zuby joins me now. Zuby, are the left branding people conspiracy theorists to try and censor them, do you think?
Hey, Dan, good to see you. My voice is a little bit weak today.
You're sounding like, who's that? Brown. You know who I mean. Barry White.
Oh, Barry White. Okay, I'll take that one. So I don't think that it's, like many things, I don't think it's as simple as a left and right issue. But I think that we are living in a time where people want to label people to avoid having to contend with their ideas. We've seen many variations of this a few years ago, whether it came to people who voted for Trump or Brexit. It was calling people racist and then calling them white supremacists, even going as far as calling them Nazis. And then things shifted to the COVID narrative, and it became grandma killers and anti-vaxxers and anti-science and so on. And now it's shifted again. People are now being called conspiracy theorists, anyone who questions any narrative. And honestly, I think it's just laziness. I think it's intellectual laziness, and I think it's dishonesty. I just listened to that Russell Brand clip right there, and I didn't find anything objectionable at all in it. And I think people should be encouraging one another to ask questions and to challenge the narrative. I think it's very dangerous to just have everybody marching in lockstep on every single issue, not asking any questions, not questioning the authorities at all. I mean, in countries such as the UK, I mean, that's one of the great values that we have, in that you can question and challenge the authorities. And so, yeah, I think it's a very lazy label. And I think people think they can just stick a label on it, and then they don't need to go any further. They don't need to explain what the person is wrong about. They don't need to explain what is misinformation or disinformation. They just throw those words out there, and they think that they're done.
Do you think Russell Brand could be Britain's answer to Joe Rogan, Zuby?
Well, I think they do somewhat different things, although there is a little bit of an overlap there. What I like with both of those individuals, I know Joe, I haven't met Russell, but I like the fact that they are intellectually curious, and ultimately they are themselves. I don't think that Russell Brand is trying to be Joe Rogan. I think he's just being Russell Brand, and he's been through many evolutions over the course of the past several decades. And what he's doing now with his YouTube channel and commentary is something quite different to what he was doing, say, 10 years ago. And not everyone is going to like it when you start doing new things. Not everyone is going to agree with you or like the fact that you're even changing and going into some lanes that perhaps you weren't initially known for. But we live in this wonderful society where people have the freedom and liberty to do that. And you know what? If you don't like what he's saying, or if you think he's incorrect, you could make a YouTube video, or you could make a Twitter thread or a blog or something explaining what you take issue with, or explaining the things that he said that you think he got wrong. In many cases now, there's this dangerous notion where people would rather censor or deplatform people with ideas that they disagree with, rather than debate them, rather than conversate, rather than challenge them. We all have lots of different ideas, and we all have the platform to speak them.
Zubi, thank you so much. I'll let you rest the voice, but we'll speak again next week. And it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel back with me. Sarah Vine, who's your nomination for Greatest Britain?
Liz Truss, obviously.
Who we trust.
I think she did a good job this week. She did a good job. But she did, I mean, obviously it wasn't all her because they've been trying to do it for a long time.
No, but she got it over the line.
She got it over the line. So I think, you know, she does deserve praise for that.
She got it over the line. Dominique Samuels, what about you?
My nomination is Nevin Truesdale, the CEO of the Jockey Club, the largest commercial group in racing. Racing has had a really, really hard year. He took the reins in 2021. And just seeing how much he cares about his staff, cares about the sport, and wants to keep it in shape, especially after COVID, it's been really inspirational. I think he's a great guy.
Amy Nicole, your nominee.
So not technically a Brit, a Ukrainian. Former Miss Ukraine, Anastasia Lena, who has swapped bikinis and high heels for Kalashnikovs and gone to the Ukrainian frontline to fight, which I think is just incredibly brave.
Good on her. All great choices. I'm going to go with Sarah Vine, though, and Liz Truss, who secured that release this week. Union Jackass time. Sarah Vine, your nominee.
Rebel Wilson, for that excruciating BAFTA presenting thing. Just awful on 27,000 different levels.
Dominique Samuels.
Mine's Nicola Sturgeon for deciding to keep mask wearing, muzzling her people until April, and it'll be under review. I think it's a ridiculous decision. And people prefer to breathe fresh air and not cloth fibres, so she needs to wake up.
Amy Nicole, your nominee.
So, again, I think I've nominated them about 4 times now. The Met Police for the deplorable strip searching of a 15-year-old girl who was on her period at the time, and only 2 out of 3 of the officers have been dismissed, so 2 continue to work in the police. Which
Thank you for that nomination. I'm going with scheming surgeon, though, because why is she muzzling Scots any longer? Sarah Vine, Dominique Samuels, Amy Nicole, fabulous superstar panel to end the week. Thank you so much for your company all week. I'm back again Monday at 9 p.m. Good night.
Good evening. If you like blue skies, well, you're in for a treat. For the next couple of days, most of us will see plenty of sunshine. But early on tomorrow, could be quite foggy, and certainly it will be a chilly old start. This weakening weather front has brought a few showers through the day, and still a few around this evening across parts of Scotland. But high pressure is moving in, and this will dominate our weather through Friday and Saturday. As I said, still 1 or 2 showers over the Highlands, the Northern Isles, the Western Isles, steadily fading overnight. For most, it's a dry evening, a dry and clear night. Fog is likely to form over parts of the Midlands, Wales and southern England. Could be quite dense in places as well. Further north, staying largely clear. It's here where we will get fairly extensive frost, but even further south, it's a cold start to Friday, especially if you've got the fog, quite a grey start for some, and it may take a while for that fog to clear, certainly likely to linger through the morning rush hour. But once it's gone from late morning, it's generally a fine and sunny day up and down the land. Plenty of blue sky, a bit of a breeze picking up once more in the northwest, temperatures here 8 to 10, but elsewhere, look at that, widely into the teens, 16, 17 and 18 is just about possible. The sun is getting stronger and stronger at the moment. It will turn quite cold quite quickly during tomorrow evening under those clear skies.